It's absolutely wonderful. Cough button used. And of course, I leaned out of the window. I was going to be clever. And I was going to say, "Good morning, John Wayne." I said, "Good morning." And he looked at me and he winked and he said, "You're going to say John Wayne, aren't you?" Oh, they got used to idiots like me. But it is wonderful, wonderful country. And there is no question that if you want to go to Armenia, dig a little. Don't just go to Yerevan. Get out into the countryside. I also remember saying to my colleague, "What's that tower doing over there?" And it was a sort of ramshackle man-made tower. And that is so that the bee watcher can sit there and keep an eye on the hives. And one of the main staples of the countryside is producing honey. And they've all got their hives and they have a collective and they all put them in the same field. So you see hundreds and hundreds of hives. But there are also honey rustlers, people who come and steal the hives and steal the honey. So they hire a watcher who sits at the top of the tower and keeps his eye on all these hives and watches the bees and so on, so to make sure that they're not stolen. How wonderful, how wonderful, how wonderful. You know, it's if you actually go to somewhere and you're working, it's much better than going and just visiting and being on holiday, because you see so many different things and you find out so many different customs and little things that you would never ever find out. The other thing about Yerevan is that you can, wherever you go, you can see Mount Ararat. The brand is named after it, of course, but Mount Ararat. What's special about Mount Ararat? Well, that's where Noah collected the animals in the ark and went in 2 by 2 in the Great Flood. And halfway up the mountain now, it's authenticated, is Noah's Ark, having been found where, when the floods receded, it stopped on the mountainside. And it's actually in Turkey, it's not in Armenia, but you can look across at Ararat. And it is one of the most beautiful mountains. But because you can look down almost any street and from any viewpoint, and you see this magnificent mountain framed either in trees or buildings or whatever, it's one of the great delights and beauties of the world. I'm surprised, well, not surprised, but I would rate it. I've seen many of the wonders of the world. I was saying yesterday to somebody, I've seen the Taj Mahal, I've seen Niagara Falls, I've seen the Sphinx, I've seen all sorts of things that are considered to be the wonders of the world, the Aurora Borealis, you name it. I've been very, very fortunate to have seen it. And I think that the view of Mount Ararat from Yerevan is one of the great marvels of this world. It takes your breath away. Now, why do I go there? Well, I go on training missions to train journalists. And on the odd occasion, I go to train communications as such, and I was lucky enough to be asked to go and train lady candidates in their upcoming general election a few years ago. And amongst the candidates was Star Jackson. Wow! Now, Star's English was absolutely superb, but she was also very helpful and made sure that she steered me through. Just a wonderful, wonderful lady, and we've remained friends ever since. But Star is as daft as I am. As daft as many of my friends are. She's a complete bundle of fun. And she laughs and she cries, she writes poetry, she sings, she philosophizes, she does all sorts of things, and she is just charming. And her sister, Yeva, is a wonderful songstress, if we can still use that word, and who has actually done very well on one of the overseas Britain's Got Talent type things. She got to the semi-finals, I understand, and she really has got a wonderful voice. And I continue to play something called Flawless Mind. Flawless Mind is quite special. Yeva sings it, but Star wrote the lyrics. And as a consequence, it's very special to me, and it's very special every time I talk about Armenia. So here we go with Flawless Minds and Yeva.
He never bring you down or leave you alone. Trust him all in all, 'cause he's the light. He'll lead your way through darkest of times. He'll never let you go. And he'll be there for you. And he'll be there for you. He'll never bring you down or leave you alone. Trust him all in all, 'cause he's the light. And he leads your way through darkest of times. He never lets you go. And he'll be there for you. He'll be there for you. He'll be there for you. And he'll be Look at the heaven, your Savior is there. He's the Lamb of God, our Savior, Redeemer. He's alive. He took all your fears. He never let you go. Even in the seas that you drown, and nowhere you can run, I keep your eyes on the prize with a flawless mind. Even in the seas that you drown, and nowhere you can run, keep your eyes on the prize with a flawless
The sisters Star and Yeva. What a combination. Whoa, and that's a gorgeous piece of music. We use it in some of our documentaries, particularly if it's to do with our historic priory here, which is left in ruins by Henry VIII of Vandal. And but there is still there, after 1,000 years, the basics, the inner walls are still there. And if you wanted to see what it looked like in its prime day, some of the outer walls, the good citizens of Lewes filched all the cladding and put it on their own houses. And there is a house called the Grange, which is clad with materials from the Priory, and you can see just what it was in its days of grandeur. Another story, another day for the Priory. But, of course, Armenia was part of the old Soviet Union, and I spent a lot of time in Russia. And I've got a lot of Russian friends, and actually the Russians are quite delightful. And one of the stories I will tell you is about going down to the Dasha on weekends to have fun and games with the family of a nuclear sub-commander, his wife, his daughter, and their children. Oh, we had some wonderful times down there. We really did. But the funny thing is, is that we can look at one another and we can talk about international understanding. Russians have a way of thinking, as indeed we do. And there will the two meet. And I set up Russia Today, and I think I did a fair job. And tried to instill in the young journalists I was training about impartiality, independence, and so on and so forth. And today, it's almost comical. It's so bad, it's comical. I mean, it does not understand independence. Margarita Simonian, who is the executive editor, whom I love dearly, she's a lovely lady. But we have big arguments about this. And she says, Keith, but you see, your viewpoint depends on where you're standing. And quite right. But a viewpoint shouldn't be so... I mean, they use crackpots as guests. I mean, real crackpots. And they can't stop ignoring things which anywhere in the world would think important. And I try to say this to them when I have lunch with them occasionally, and they don't want to talk about it. And this is to a friend. God only knows what they do to an enemy. But Russia, wonderful place. Moscow, fascinating. The people, friendly and terrific. They have been taught over the many years to have a particular way of life. They are suspicious of the West, and I don't blame them, because we are not exactly friendly to them. We, since the turn of the last century, when the government changed, we've always been very careful about the Russian bear. And if we really want to spend our overseas aid, it's not so much spend the money in Russia, but to spend it on trying to break down understanding between us and Russians, because they are delightful. They're lovely people. Well, I had a lovely morning this morning, reminiscing. I managed to get... damn it, I'm not going to play out this morning. I'm going to play it out again with Rose, Rose, I Love You, because it's just a wonderful, wonderful reminder of the dark years of the war and the lady who actually kept us sane. That's me for this morning, Keith Hayes.